So you're thinking about moving to Nashville in your 20s, and I don't blame you because I did the same thing 4 years ago, and it was single-handedly the best decision I've made in my 20s. But you might be a little unsure. You're like, I don't know if Nashville is right for me. Are we gonna vibe? Like, you need the details, and I get you because I'm 100% a person that also needs the details. But since moving to Nashville 4 years ago, I have a full-time career in social media. We're adding in YouTube. I met my boyfriend of 3 years here. He's in Nashville, born and raised, and also have met some of my best friends here. So I have had a great time in Nashville and absolutely love the city. I think I'm like the poster child for Nashville, honestly. I just love everything about it. Not everything, but I really love a lot about it. And I do think it's a great place to live in your 20s. Again, not for everybody, but I think there's a lot to love. So if you're curious about living in Nashville, what it's really like, some of the pros and cons, and if it's a good place to live in your 20s depending on your lifestyle, then you're gonna wanna watch this video. All right, now let's do a little vibe check. What does Nashville really feel like? My favorite way to describe Nashville is like a big city with a small town feel. Now, this is gonna depend on where you're moving from, because if you're moving from New York or LA or like a bigger city, then Nashville's gonna feel probably a lot smaller to you. I moved from a small town in Arkansas, so I was like, oh, you know, there's a Target in town, multiple Targets in town. That's quite the big city. So it depends on where you're moving from, of course, but it has that small town vibe in that if you meet people, like you're probably gonna run into them if you're like walking around town, like at a gym or the grocery store. Like I run into people that I know all the time, just like around town. So it definitely has a little bit of that small town vibe to it, but it's also like, it's a growing city. I wouldn't say it's like a big city. It's like a small city. So I think there's lots to do here. I think it's growing so much. The skyline is really filling out. And yeah, it's a city in its own right. It's just a smaller city. So that's my favorite way to describe it. And to me, it's like the best of both worlds. You get the small town feel, but also enough stuff to do in a big city. Nashville is also in the South, so I find it to be still pretty Southern and warm. Nashville definitely has like that Southern charm. Like people will open the door for you. You get like sweet tea here. I love the like Southern charm aspect of it. I love a little bit of like just the country music culture. I think it's so fun. So I love living in the South, but if you're not from the South, that might be like maybe a little bit of a culture shock. I feel like life is also like maybe a little bit slower here. It's not as crazy fast paced as it would be in a bigger city. Then on safety, I know whenever I was first moving to Nashville, I was like, gosh, 22, I guess. My parents were like, safety, like, are you gonna be safe in a city? A girl like moving out on her own? What's that gonna be like? And I would say I have generally felt pretty safe in Nashville. I think it's like any other city. You wanna be smart, you know, you wanna just remember you're living in a city, like as you go about your lives. Price and cost of living is another thing I wanted to talk about. Again, depends on where you're moving from. If you're moving from somewhere smaller, and Nashville's gonna feel more expensive. If you're moving from a bigger city, it's gonna feel less expensive probably. I would say it's like a mid-range price point. I believe like a 1-bedroom in Nashville is probably gonna be like about $1,700. The closer you live to downtown, like the more expensive your rent's gonna be. The further out, the cheaper rent's gonna be. So I think you can kind of like pick and choose there to make Nashville fit your budget. And then also the music. That was another thing I was really excited about when I was moving to Nashville. It's just like, oh, the country music of it all. Like we have Broadway with our honky tonks and like live music pretty much everywhere you are in Nashville. So if you are a big music person, you are gonna love that. If you're a musician, you're gonna love that. So obviously country music's like probably the biggest thing here. But if you love different genres or play different genres, there's also like, people don't just listen to country music here. Like we love all kinds of music here. Just a quick vibe check on Nashville. I feel like that was like a good overview on like what Nashville is kind of about. Now let's dive in specifically on what Nashville's like in your 20s. So I would say it's definitely like a hot spot for people in their 20s. I mean, I moved here in my 20s. All my friends moved here in their 20s. I feel like every time I meet somebody, I'm asking them like, when did you move to Nashville? Where did you move from? Like everybody is moving from other places. It's so easy to make friends here because there are people who are moving from all over all the time. Something is drawing all those people in. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the drinking culture here. So I think because, you know, we have Broadway, because there are so many people in their 20s that are moving here, drinking culture is definitely a big thing. I did not really drink a ton before moving to Nashville, but then when I moved here, I was like, oh, people like, you know, you're going out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and then you're going to brunch the next day, and you'll have a boozy brunch. I think drinking culture is definitely a big thing here. Like if you're wanting to do something social, you might go to a bar or a brewery. Maybe that's just being in your 20s. Maybe that's being in the city. Maybe that's Nashville. I think it's probably a little bit of all three of those things. But if you don't drink, then like there's still also like plenty of things to do. And also, you know, I love to go to the bar even if I'm not drinking and like grab a mocktail or just like hang out with friends. You absolutely don't have to drink if you don't want to. Plenty of fun things to do. And speaking of fun things to do, I think that because there are so many people in their 20s in Nashville, that there's like a lot of fun things to do that are catered towards people in their 20s. Like lots of concerts, lots of events. There are lots of social groups, lots of like kickball leagues, pickleball leagues, just so many things that are catered towards making friends in Nashville, to meeting people in Nashville, to just like having fun and living your life in Nashville. Like you're gonna feel at home in your 20s. You're not gonna feel like an oddball. There are gonna be a lot of other people here that you can relate to. Again, just another great place to be in your 20s. All right, now that we have a little overview and also like what it's like living in your 20s in Nashville, let's talk about the cons. Is Nashville over romanticized? All right, so number one on my con list is that there's no major public transportation. So we do have a bus system that goes a good amount of like downtown Nashville area, but I would say we're not a Chicago, you know, we're not a DC, we don't have a good train system, we don't have a good subway system. So if you don't have a vehicle, that's probably gonna be an issue, and you'll be doing a lot of walking, but also our sidewalks are not that great either. So I would say Nashville has a lot of room to grow in their public transportation system. I think it would be so fun if we had, yeah, like some kind of train system or like trolley system, I don't know, but yeah, we don't right now. So, and traffic also, you definitely want to avoid it at like 4 to 5 p.m. because again, there are a lot of people moving here, so it gets quite a bit busy. Nashville, I would definitely love that if we could get some public transportation, but we'll see. Number two is that it is getting pricey. So we did talk about cost of living a little bit, but yeah, I would say that it's kind of just rising. So I actually went to LA at the beginning of this year and I was thinking like, oh, I need a budget extra because when we go out to eat like and drink, like the food and drinks are gonna be extra. And then as we were going out to eat, I was like, oh, you know, this is kind of not unlike Nashville prices. Like, you know, 20 bucks for a cocktail. I was like, yeah, that feels pretty normal. And then I was like, you know, I would think that Nashville's would be a lot cheaper if we're in LA, which is a lot more expensive, but they were kind of comparable. So I don't know what that says about Nashville, but yeah, I would say, you know, the rent is getting more expensive, and just cost of living is going up. Like I said, I mean, that's something to consider for sure, but I mean, I had a roommate who lived in, you know, a little bit further out of Nashville. I think there are definitely ways around it, but just something to consider. Number three, and we also kind of touched on this, but again, just like for petty crime related to cars, I feel like that's like kind of annoying, but again, I've felt generally pretty safe in Nashville, but again, you just want to like be careful about not leaving like your valuables in your car overnight or like parking in sketchy areas because things like that do happen. It's a city, so just keep that in mind. Another thing, going back to that like small town, big city vibes, I will say Nashville is a growing city, but there's also like not so much to do. There is a lot to do, but I've lived here for 4 years, so I definitely feel like I've done a lot of the things that there are to do in Nashville. So, you know, if you're, again, moving from a bigger city like New York or I don't even know, like Chicago, Dallas, you might feel like you've done a lot of the things to do in Nashville and been to a lot of the places. So it's growing. There's new stuff popping up all the time. And whenever new stuff pops up, people are like so excited about it. Like we had a couple of new like cafes open up and you get multiple hour-long lines because everybody is so excited for something new. So just to keep in mind, it's a growing city. There's lots of stuff that's coming. Yeah, you just kind of have to like go with that growth. The next thing is that it's a little bit touristy. So again, if you live in a big city, maybe you're used to this depending on the city, but I would say Nashville is a big bachelorette center. So you will probably see bachelorette parties if you are on Broadway for sure, but like, you know, around the mall, 12 South, Gulch, like other popular areas of town, you'll definitely see lots of bachelorette parties or just like tourists in general, especially during the summer, it gets very busy, especially on Broadway. So just another thing to keep in mind, if that is not your vibe, if you don't love like tourists kind of all over the place, then that may be something to think about. I wouldn't say it's crazy, it doesn't bother me, but again, just something to think about. And the last thing, again, we kind of touched on this, but Nashville is a transient city, which I love because it's great because you have so many people coming here. It's easy to make friends, that kind of vibe. But then it's also hard because I have had 2 friends leave within the same month. 2 of my closest friends here in Nashville because again, Nashville is a transient city. So people are moving in, but people are also moving out. So that is kind of hard to deal with when you're making friends. It's just like, oh, are you gonna be moving away, you know, within the next year or 2? Because that kind of sucks as you're making friends. Because there are so many people in their 20s who are moving in and out. It's like, you know, people are getting married, they're having babies, they're, you know, still like kind of fresh in their careers, like nobody's super settled, so there's just a lot of moving pieces, and so that does kind of suck whenever your people move away or you're just like not sure where things stand, and you may not be sure, like, am I gonna live in Nashville for the long haul, or like, I don't know. There's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of moving pieces. Just something, again, to think about. Well, I hate to have ended on the cons there, but I'm gonna wrap it up with some pros too. Just that I absolutely love Nashville. It was like the best decision of my 20s to move here. I have met my boyfriend, I've met some of my best friends, I have this amazing career that I don't know I would have if I hadn't moved here. I just think it's a really special and magical place. But I also think life is what you make of it, so I don't think there's a specific right or wrong place. And you know, if you move to Nashville and you wanna make it this magical experience, I think that's up to you. Life is what you make it. But if I've sold you on Nashville, comment where you're moving from and let me know what else you wanna know. And subscribe if you want more life in your 20s, figuring it out, making friends, Nashville living. I'm definitely gonna be posting more vlogs, all that good stuff. But thanks so much for watching. I love you guys, bye.